Hare Krishna. Welcome to the daily morning Srimad Bhagavatam class at Sri Radha Kalachandjidam. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Went too far. Okay, we'll continue with our reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Canto 10, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction. We'll do text 46 through 55. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We can do the prayers together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. And then the Mangalacharana says, Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Welcome everybody. So we're approaching the advent of Krishna. The advent eventually happens in the third chapter, but we're getting the introduction to the circumstances in which it's going to happen. So far, what's happened in this chapter? Does anybody want to recap? You know, anybody who's been attending for a while? For the benefit of those who are just coming into our... How did this start? How did the chapter begin? the earth was burdened, right, by so many impious kings. The Mother Earth could not bear the burden and therefore approached Lord Brahma. And then Lord Brahma, along with all the demigods, went to the um, ocean of milk, right, and then approached Krishna to please ask him to descend, to please help Mother Earth. And then Krishna said, okay, I'll come, but then I want all of you to also incarnate so that you can help me with my with my activities. So that happened, and then the scene cuts to Mathura, where you have Kamsa as the chariot driver and Devaki and Vasudeva in his chariot. And then a voice from the top says, "You foolish rascal, what are you doing? You're basically taking your sister, who is actually going to give birth to the 8th child." It left it open. It didn't say whether it was a boy or a girl. The voice from the top left it ambiguous to say it's the 8th child is going to kill you. And you're basically riding her joyfully to her home. So then at that point, when Kamsa hears this message from the top, he gets furious, and his action is to go and kill Devaki, because when you kill Devaki, there is not going to be any child, and therefore Kamsa cannot be killed. At that point, what Vasudeva starts to do is tries to plead to Kamsa. The section before what Vasudeva has done is basically speak different kinds of philosophies, saying you're the king. A king killing a woman is actually not so great for the reputation of the king. Why will you go and do this? And he says, all of us have to approach death imminently. We're not all going to live forever. So death is going to come anytime. Why will you do such an impious activity that will actually put you in more trouble in your next life? And so many ways like this, Vasudeva is speaking about different kinds of philosophy. And we'll begin the section right now where he has finished his explanation, and then he's seeing what the reaction of Kamsa is. He's said a lot actually at this point. And that's where we begin, from text 46. So this is the context for our class today. We'll go all the way through text 55 in our discussion today. So somebody, can you start with the translation for text 46? Can you use the microphone, please? Can you pass the mic here?
Sukadeva Goswami continued, O best of the Kuru dynasty, Kamsa was fiercely cruel and was actually a follower of the Rakshasas. Therefore, he could be neither pacified nor terrified by the good instructions given by Vasudeva. He did not care about the results of sinful activities either in this life or in the next.
So Sukadeva Goswami is giving us a commentary of what's actually happening. And it is very important to note here that Kamsa was a follower of the Rakshasas. So that's what he's going to think like, right? All these good sense is not going to enter his mind because of the association he has been keeping. The Acharyas even specify Aghasura in their commentaries to say he's been friends with Aghasura. What else can you think? This is what's going to happen. So every good advice that Vasudeva gave to Kamsa did not enter his ears. He was, and Shukadeva Goswami gives several adjectives actually here. In this one, he's saying he was fiercely cruel, Kamsa. We'll see what other adjectives are used for Kamsa to kind of depict the kind of person he was, which is why none of these good instructions entered his mind. To start with, he was fiercely cruel. The second characteristic that's given here is he was follower of the Rakshasas. So nothing could pacify him or terrify him. Actually, Shukadeva Goswami says what Vasudeva has said should actually have terrified Kamsa, because the action that he was going to commit would not result in great consequences for Kamsa. In fact, it would result in horrible consequences for Kamsa, and yet he was not terrified of such an advice. So because of the association that he was keeping. Okay, let's continue.
When Vasudeva saw that Kamsa was determined to kill his sister Devaki, he thought to himself very deeply, considering the imminent danger of death. He thought of another plan to stop Kamsa.
Here, in this verse, we didn't read the Sanskrit. Vasudev is called Anaka Dundubi. You know why his name is called Anaka Dundubi? I think it's come up a few times in this chapter. Do you know why? See, Anaka Dundubi means when Vasudev was born, these kettle drums were being played. It was a great sign of auspiciousness when he was born, and therefore he was called Anaka Dundubi. For one when he was born, these kettle drums were played. That's why Vasudev is called Anaka Dundubi. And in the previous section, this was mentioned because when the voice from the top spoke about the imminent death of Kamsa, what Vasudeva and Devaki took was, they were very happy that Krishna was going to be born as their son. Because this was actually stated when Vasudeva was being born, that he would actually give birth to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he had told this to Devaki when they got married. And when this voice from the top spoke to Kamsa, then they were very happy. Oh, nothing is going to happen to Devaki. This is in fact one of the reasons why the voice from the top also said, "You foolish rascal." I mean, they were actually inciting Kamsa. They didn't say it in a nice way, right? "Oh, Kamsa, don't do this. This is actually not so great for you." The way that they were saying this was in a very insightful manner so that they could get a reaction from Kamsa. But they perfectly knew, because of the prediction when Vasudeva was born, that nothing was going to happen to him, because Krishna was going to be born to Vasudeva and Devaki. Therefore, they felt very happy. And the demigods also, when they spoke, they also knew that nothing was going to happen to Devaki because of this prediction, and they were trying to incite. So that's another name for Vasudeva. And from this in this verse, he thought, nothing is going to really happen to me. My welfare I'm not really worried about because of the Anaka Dundubi, the Dundubis that was being played when I was born. But my wife is in real imminent danger, so I have to really think fast at this point, because everything that I said, Kamsa was not really satisfied by my arguments. Okay, let's continue. Yes. Anaka Dundubi means when he was born, this Dundubi was being played. This instrument, the kettle drum. So that's why his name is called Anaka Dundubi. One who, when he was born, the kettle drum was being played. That's what the name means. Prabhupada also translates the word Anaka Dundubi as Vasudev in his word for word. Yeah, and in its purport he gives this. Because at his birth, the demigods had played the drums and kettle drums. Yeah. Yes. If it happens spontaneously, yes. It means there is an omen. Yes, that is true. That is true. Thank you. Jai. Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu. Safe travels. Okay, text 48.
As long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. This is the duty of every embodied person. But if death cannot be avoided in spite of one's endeavors, a person facing death commits no offense.
Yeah. So Sukadeva Goswami is giving the basis for what Vasudeva is going to do. He is trying to avoid imminent death that Devaki is facing, and it is proper, Sukadeva Goswami says. But Prabhupada in his purport adds something more. He says it's just not any ordinary death, because everybody is going to die when they are born, right? But what we are trying to do is avoid death completely. This is what an intelligent person actually tries to do. This is why we try to avoid death in this lifetime, is that we can ultimately avoid death and rebirth altogether, Prabhupada says in the purport. This is what an intelligent person tries to do. Not just to avoid death so that they can continue their sense gratification in this world, but avoid death in the ultimate sense. We live our lives in such a way that we avoid death and rebirth altogether. This is the sign of an intelligent person. And Prabhupada quotes this, Tyaktva deham punarjanmam naiti mameti Arjuna, which is the beginning of this verse, you know? Yes, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. This is why we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Once we know and understand the birth and activities of the Lord, there is no more birth again for us. So this is what Vasudeva is trying to do, is save Devaki from imminent danger. Next verse.
Vasudeva considered, by delivering all my sons to Kamsa, who is death personified, I shall save the life of Devaki. Perhaps Kamsa will die before my sons take birth, or, since he is already destined to die at the hands of my son, one of my sons may kill him. For the time being, let me promise to hand over my sons, so that Kamsa will give up this immediate threat. And if in due course of time Kamsa dies, I shall have nothing to fear.
So he's thinking about all the different combinations of things that can. Let's go to the next verse. Yeah. 51.
When a fire, for some unseen reason, leaps over one piece of wood and sets fire to the next, the reason is destiny. Similarly, when a living being accepts one kind of body and leaves aside another, there is no other reason than unseen destiny.
Yeah. Actually, the decision that Vasudev made was very difficult decision to make. And we'll see the quality of Vasudev a little later in the text that we are reading. When Vasudev said this, if anybody had said this, people would not believe it. Think about it. Somebody is saying, I'm going to give my sons to you for you to kill the sons. It's actually not a very easy thing to do at all. It's an impossible thing to do for anybody. But what Vasudev was thinking was, at the present moment, my wife is in danger. Let me do something to first save her. And ultimately he was thinking, oh, before my sons are being born, Kamsa might die. So I might not even have to get there. And even if I have to give my sons to Kamsa, it has been predicted that my sons will kill Kamsa. So my sons might actually kill Kamsa. So hopefully nothing would happen to them. And the example that's given here for his reasoning is in a forest fire, the fire burns a tree, and then sometimes it jumps over another tree and then burns the other tree. The tree in between is completely unharmed, right? So we don't know what the reason for it is. If you can see these tornadoes go also, it just takes out, like the house next here and the house here is perfectly fine, the house in the middle is completely gone. So we never know what the reason for this is. It's completely the will of the providence. So he says it's actually not good for us to try to reason this out. It's very difficult for us to reason this out because this is very complicated. So what I'm going to do is try my best and leave things up to providence, is Vasudev's thinking here. Okay, 52.
After considering the matter as far as the knowledge would allow, Vasudeva submit the proposal to sinful Kamsa with great respect.
Yeah. So far what he has been doing is he's been considering. He has not said anything to Kamsa yet. And he's been thinking about all the different things that could happen. And now he's actually going to place his proposal to Kamsa. We'll read the translations and then come back to 53 again, because that's the verse for today. Text 53.
Vasudev's mind was full of anxiety because his wife was facing danger. But in order to please the cruel, shameless, and sinful Kamsa, he externally smiled and spoke to him as follows.
Let's go to the next translation. We'll come back again.
Vasudeva said, O best of the sober, you have nothing to fear from your sister Devaki because of what you have heard from the unseen omen. The cause of death will be her sons. Therefore, I promise that when she gives birth to the sons from whom your fear has arisen, I shall deliver them unto all your hands.
Yeah. He's saying there is no danger from Devaki as such, right? She is not going to do anything to you. It's only the sons of Devaki who are going to kill you. So he's made his heart, made his mind, and said, I'm going to give my sons to you so that you can do whatever you want with them. Actually, really difficult. 55. This is the last verse for today, and then we'll go back to 53.
Srila Shukadev Goswami continued. Kamsa agreed to the logical arguments of Vasudev, and having full faith in Vasudev's words, he refrained from killing his sister. Vasudev, being pleased with Kamsa, pacified him further and entered his own house.
Yeah. So the reason why Kamsa agreed to the actually not even the logical arguments. He didn't really agree to whatever he said before. But this proposal, which he thought was logical, oh yeah, Devaki was not really the person who's going to kill me is the son, so I can handle the sons, is because he had full faith in the words of Vasudeva. And I want to read this. It's a small purport, but it tells, Prabhupada's purport here is really nice, that talks about the quality of Vasudeva. It says, although Kamsa was a sinful demon, he believed that Vasudeva would never deviate from his word. The character of a pure devotee like Vasudeva is such that even so great a demon as Kamsa firmly believed in his words and was satisfied. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate surah. Bhagavatam 5:18-12. All good attributes are present in a devotee, so much so that even Kamsa believed in Vasudeva's words without a doubt. Actually, at this point, it's very difficult for somebody to believe in the words of the other person, considering the circumstance, right? The son of that person is actually going to kill him. And then I'm saying, as a father, I'm going to come and give my sons to you as soon as they are born. Anybody would feel, I really don't want to take this chance at all, right? Why will I take this chance? When I kill Devaki, I don't even have this thing to worry about. What will happen to the sons? Will he actually bring them to me or not? What if I... So many things can run in a person's mind, and yet Kamsa, for all the cruel person that he was, really trusted in the words of Vasudeva because of his character. When Vasudeva said something, it was known that he would deliver. There was no going back. This was the character of Vasudeva. And Prabhupada here is quoting this famous verse from the Bhagavatam, right, where it says, when you are a devotee, all the good qualities of the demigods are there in you. But you might have all these different qualities, but if you're not a devotee, what is the use of all those qualities? Because everything that you have, you're not using it for Krishna's service. This is the point. It's not that they don't have any good qualities at all. That doesn't. We're not negating everything that people might have. They might be honest, they might be truthful, they might have all these qualities, but they're not using it for the right purposes. Everything that they're doing is for themselves. Oh, I want to be called an honest person, right? That's the reason for why they're doing it. But in the case of a devotee, everything that the devotee does is for the service of the Lord. Therefore, automatically he gets all these qualities. Because when it's for the service of the Lord, we don't want to have all these negative connotations in that service. But this purport today is really bewildering. What Prabhupada is saying in this purport is the exact opposite of this. So we'll see. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare because I had like 10 hours when I knew that I was going to give the class. But I'll open it up and hopefully we can discuss a little bit more on what Prabhupada says in this purport after I have a few things to say. So let's go to text 53 and read the Sanskrit. Prasanna vadanambojo nrishamsham nirapatrapam manasadhuyamanena vihasannidamabravit prasanna vadanambojo nrishamsam nirapatrapam manasadhuyamanena vihasannidamabravit. Please chant. Prasanna vadanambojo drishamsham nirapatrapam manasadhuyamanena vihasannidamabravit. Prasanna vadanambojo drishamsham nirapatrapam manasadhuyamanena vihasannidamabravit. Prasanna vadanambojo nishamsam nirapatrapam manasadhuyamanena vihasannidamabravit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the word for word. Prasanna vadana amboja Vasudeva, who externally presented himself as if very happy. Drishamsam, unto the most cruel. Nirapatrapam, shameless Kamsa. Manasa, with the mind. Dhuyamanena, which was full of anxiety and sorrow. Vihasan, smiling externally. Idam abravid, and spoke as follows. Vasudeva's mind was full of anxiety because his wife was facing danger. But in order to please the cruel, shameless, and sinful Kamsa, he externally smiled and spoke to him as follows. Purport. Sometimes one must act duplicitously in a dangerous position, as Vasudeva did to save his wife. The material world is complicated, and to execute one's duties, one cannot avoid adopting such diplomacy. Vasudeva did everything possible to save his wife for the sake of begetting Krishna. This indicates that one may act duplicitously for the purpose of saving Krishna and his interests. According to the arrangement already foretold, Krishna was to appear through Vasudeva and Devaki to kill Kamsa. Vasudeva, therefore, had to do everything to save the situation. Although all the events were prearranged by Krishna, a devotee must try his best to serve the purpose of Krishna. Krishna himself is all-powerful, but it is not that a devotee should therefore sit idly and leave everything to him. This instruction is also found in Bhagavad Gita. Although Krishna was doing everything for Arjuna, Arjuna never sat down idly as a non-violent gentleman. Rather, he tried his best to fight the battle and be victorious. Two aspects in the purport. One, Prabhupada is saying we can be duplicitous in some situations, and then he says we must do everything to further the interests of Krishna and not sit idly. So what does duplicity mean? Do you know? Any ideas? Yeah, here, dupliciously says. Yes, Brihat Mridanga Prabhu. Who has the microphone?
Krishna. I just looked up the etymology of duplicitous.
Yes.
And it comes from duplex. So two folds, something that's folded in two, but it indicates that there's two sides.
Yes.
So internally you're feeling or thinking something, externally you're displaying something different.
Yes. For a person, what we see is the external aspect. Right? Nobody knows what we think in the inside. Duplicitous means we do the opposite. We're thinking something internally, but we're saying and doing the opposite of what we're thinking internally. Which is what Vasudeva was doing here. Right? We've read about the character of Vasudeva, and we've said how Kamsa was trusting his words because he was not a duplicitous person. If somebody was duplicitous, they would say something but do something else because they were thinking something else internally. Here, the verse says, Vasudeva's mind was full of anxiety. He was not happy. The situation that he was put in was a horrible situation to start with. So how can he be happy? He was full of anxiety, but in order to please Kamsa, he externally smiled. He projected himself as if he was happy. This is the very example of being duplicitous. You're thinking something else, but you're doing something else. You're behaving completely differently. And Prabhupada says in this purport that sometimes we must act duplicitously because this world is a very complicated place. And in this situation, does it mean that all of us can just think something inside and behave something externally? Is this a blanket pass to become duplicitous as devotees? Because we can say, oh, this world is a complicated place. I can do whatever I want, but think whatever I want. It can be the complete opposites of it. That's not what Vasudeva is doing here. If you look at the build-up to this verse, he was being very thoughtful. In fact, the verse before, Shukadeva Goswami says, after thus considering the matter as far as his knowledge would allow, he says. It was not a whimsical thing. It was not a habit. It was not his nature where he would just naturally think something internally and do the complete opposite of what he would do, what he would think. But what Vasudeva was doing here was very, very thoughtful. And this is a very exceptional situation also, where he didn't have a way out, and he had to do something about the situation because he had to kill Devaki. And it was also the person that he was interacting with. You have to look at the situation as a whole. It was not just Vasudeva and the situation also, but what he had done before coming to this point of smiling at Kamsa. And 3 adjectives again are used for Kamsa: cruel, shameless, and sinful. This was the person that he was interacting with. There was no reasoning with this person, which he had actually tried. It was not that he was not duplicitous the first instance. Even though Kamsa was cruel and very, very shameless in trying to kill a woman, and he was very sinful, he could do anything that he wanted. He had no framework of the Shastra as a guidance. He still tried to reason out with Kamsa. And when everything failed, he thought, okay, at this point I really have to do this. There was no way out for me. Which is what Prabhupada is saying in the purport, in my understanding. He says, sometimes one must act duplicitously in a dangerous position, as Vasudeva did to save his wife. The material world is complicated, and to execute one's duties, one cannot avoid adopting such diplomacy, he says. In this case, what was Vasudeva's duty? The duty of his husband. The duty of a husband, right? He had to save his wife. This is the duty of a husband. And he tried every means possible. And then he had to take this measure. And I was thinking if there were other instances where this was happening before. And the other instance is the famous instance I could think of in the Mahabharata, where Dronacharya was relentless. Nobody could defeat Dronacharya. And what did Krishna ask Yudhishthira Maharaj to do? To say Ashwatthama died. And in this case, it was not really his son. Who Krishna asked Yudhishthira to say was an elephant named Ashwatthama. An elephant named Ashwatthama had died, and Yudhishthira Maharaj had very similar qualities like Vasudeva. He never lied. People trusted the words of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And therefore Krishna picked him and said, only if you say this will Dronacharya believe. If you don't say this, if anybody else, if I say, he'll definitely not believe because nobody believes in what I say. But if you say this, he's definitely going to believe. And Yudhishthira Maharaj thought for a while and said, no, I cannot do this because this is lying. And eventually he did it, but he didn't lie in this case, but he said, Ashwatthama died. He said the elephant part really softly so that nobody could hear. And then, but Dronacharya heard that his son had died and he gave up fighting and he was killed. And eventually, Yudhishthira Maharaj went to hell for this. And most of the commentaries say he went to hell because he lied. But Prabhupada says he went to hell because he didn't follow the instructions of Krishna. This is what the Srimad Bhagavatam says. The matter of dharma in this world, which is how we actually interact with this world, is very, very complicated. What Prabhupada is saying in this purport. And therefore, how do we navigate this world? When do we know whether we have to be duplicitous? Or when do we know we have to be truthful? Is the most difficult question to answer. And the answer to that is Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranidam. This is what Yudhishthira Maharaj himself says. Is that dharma means following the instructions of Krishna, what Krishna set forth. So how do we know what Krishna's instructions are? We have the Gita, we have the Bhagavatam. Just by reading the verses, can we know whether whatever Krishna says, we can directly follow? It's actually very complicated. We need somebody, a teacher, who can actually tell us how to follow certain instructions in the current time, place, and circumstance. If we don't have a teacher, then this is going to be very complicated. And just a teacher and the book is not enough. What completes it? Sadhus. This is the trifecta that the scriptures offer us, right? Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Just the Shastra by itself is not enough. Just the Guru by himself is not enough, or herself is not enough. And the Sadhus by themselves are not enough. All three have to be combined together to ratify something. Just like how in a democracy we have these 3 legs, right? What are the 3 legs in a democracy? Kiddos? Do you know? Yes. What is the Congress called? It's the legislative branch, right? Then executive, and then judiciary. All 3 things combined, right, to have these checks and balances in a democracy. So we have that in the Shastra also for checks and balances to see what we have to do in a particular circumstance. It's the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, which is our guiding principle. In the case of the Pandavas, Krishna was personally present. He told Arjuna what to do. He told Yudhishthira Maharaj what to do. In our circumstance, Krishna is not personally present, at least not visible to us in our conditioned state. Till we get to the point where we are pure like Vasudeva, where we can actually understand Krishna from the heart. And this is what he says, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. When the point comes where he has given us the intelligence to act without us taking external guidances, from within Krishna is guiding us, we need the help of Guru, Sadhu, and the Shastra to navigate dharma, to navigate how we act in this world. Because this is the entire book of the Gita. What is the subject matter of the Gita? What is the subject matter of the Bhagavatam? Yeah. What is Bhagavatam telling us? The main subject matter. Yeah. What should a person do in general, especially at the time of death? This is the question. What is the question that triggers the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna in the Gita? What is the subject matter of the Gita? Yeah, what is he asking? Yeah, what is my duty? Prichami tvam dharma samuda cheta. This is what is the entire dialogue trying to answer. What is my duty at different time, place, and circumstances? And ultimately, our duty is to surrender to Krishna through a spiritual master, and from that perspective, act in this world. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, acting in this world. And act we must do is what Prabhupada is saying here. In this circumstance, the voice from the top said Kamsa is going to be killed. And it is going to be from the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, which means it was preordained. But why was Vasudeva trying so hard to protect his wife when it was preordained? He could have just sat and said, okay, nothing is going to happen to Devaki, nothing is going to happen to me, my sons are going to kill Kamsa, it's been preordained, I don't have to do anything about it. Yeah, Krishna says you must act in this world. Prabhupada gives his example. Krishna says, I've already killed everybody, Arjuna. You just have to be my instrument in this entire thing. Not a blade of grass moves out without the will of the Lord. Right? When the will of the Lord here is so clear that he's going to come and kill Kamsa. And yet, the devotee tries so hard in the service of Krishna. This is the point Prabhupada is making. It is not that because Mahaprabhu has said, in every town and village, my names will be chanted. We just said, oh, Mahaprabhu has said. Prabhupada never sat in Vrindavan, no? Mahaprabhu said, in every town and village, it will happen, it will happen. Prabhupada had deep faith in this word. In fact, when people were discussing, oh, every town and village meant every town and village in the state of West Bengal, or every town and village in the country of India, Prabhupada said, no. If Mahaprabhu said it was every town and village in the world, it meant every town and village in the world. That's what it meant. So Prabhupada had deep faith in the statement of Mahaprabhu. And yet, Prabhupada didn't sit idly. Think about the struggles that Prabhupada was going through before even coming to America. The 10 years that he was in India, he was having heat strokes in Delhi and being run over by cows. And it was just horrible what he had to go through. And then once he came to America, the things he go through. When he was coming to America, the things he had to go through for everything that was preordained. A devotee doesn't sit idly. He does everything in the service of Krishna. This is the mindset of devotee. And why this happens is because there is love between the devotee and the Lord. When there is love, you cannot stop acting. You cannot just sit idly and say, oh, my Lord will take care. When there is love, we actively try to serve. This is the very fundamental quality of love. We are trying to do as much as possible for the other person that we love. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. This is not giving us a license to just sit idly. In fact, when the reporters would come and ask Prabhupada that you're taking our youth, these people in the prime of their age, away from the society and making them beg on the streets. They would accuse Prabhupada of this in the West, right? You're taking all our youth and you're not making them work. They're taking them out of the workforce and then you're making them beg on the streets. And then Prabhupada would give back to them and say, nobody can work more harder than us. We go out in the morning, all through the night. We are out on the streets, chanting the holy names of the Lord, preaching the message of the Lord. Give me anybody else in the society who can actually work as hard as us. This is what Prabhupada was expecting of each one of us, that we would actually work so hard to spread the message of Krishna. Although it was preordained, in every town and village it will happen. It is to our credit. This is what Krishna does. That Krishna doesn't want to take the credit. He gives the credit to his devotees. Just like he had done everything in the battle of Kurukshetra, but he put Arjuna in a position where he would get all the credit for the victory of the battle of Kurukshetra. This is Krishna's mood. So from the perspective of a devotee, he is trying to do everything. This is what happens in love, right? Each one is trying to one up the other in trying to help serve the other person. From the perspective of a devotee, the devotee is trying to serve Krishna as much as possible, and Krishna is doing the same for the devotee, saying, oh, I don't want any credit, let me give all the credit to my devotee. This is what is happening between the devotee and the Lord. So these are some of my thoughts in terms of duplicity and not sitting idly in the service of Krishna. But if you have any other thoughts, I would like to hear it. Yes, Anuradha Mataji.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. I mean, when you were talking about the 55th purport about how, and then Prabhupada quoted, I was also thinking about the Goswami Astakam, Dhira, Dhira, Jana, Priya, like a pure devotee. Even the Adhira is also, and then it ends saying Nirmatsara Pujito, that, because they are non-envious. So that's one quality that even whether you are a demon or you are a demigod, everybody appreciates that you are non-envious and they're open to listen. And also the focus verse for today, and in that also, so you were mentioning about Mahabharata, the cheating thing, whether a devotee can be a pure devotee can be duplicitous or not. And I was thinking Sanatan Goswami, how he, framed the person who was in charge of the jail and got out of it, saying that I'm going to Mecca and offer prayers for you, etc., etc. So I was thinking on that instance also. Thank you for the class.
Thank you. I actually had these two in mind. Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya is the Goswamis, and from the Bhagavatam, who is that person that comes again and again in this context, who is friendly to the devotees and also to the ruffians? Yeah, Narada Muni. He's there. Hiranyakashipu is listening to him. Prahlad Maharaj is his devotee, disciple. It's incredible. He'll come again and tell Kamsa. He'll accelerate things even more. Like, you don't believe the demigods, The number 8 could be from the beginning or from the reverse also. You don't know how they count, And Kamsa trusts Narada Muni also. It is precisely because of this reason, is that they are non-envious. Everything that they do is for the welfare of the devotee. And the other instance was actually acting duplicitous. Even before that instance, Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami are acting duplicitous. Internally, they were completely sold to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And externally, they were the home minister and the finance minister of the Nawab. They were acting as if they were like royalty, And there is also direct instruction to Raghunath Das Goswami from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on how he should be duplicitous. Does anybody know? When Raghunath Das Goswami meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the first time, when he comes to Advaitacharya Prabhu's house, Nityananda Prabhu has redirected him. Mahaprabhu wants to go to Vrindavan, but he has brought him to Shantipur. And Mahaprabhu is thinking, oh, this is Yamuna, and looking at the Ganges. But there Raghunath Das Goswami meets Mahaprabhu for the first time. He's actually the first Goswami, I think, to meet Mahaprabhu. You have this book called, have you read the book called The Six Goswamis of Vrindavan? Satyaraj Prabhu. It's a really nice book. It's a small book, but it basically takes the travels of Mahaprabhu and the order in which each Goswami meets and goes into the life history of each Goswami. I think, if my memory is right, Raghunath Das Goswami is the first person to meet Mahaprabhu among all the 6 Goswamis. And I think Gopal Bhatta Goswami is the last, if I remember. Anyway, my memory might be off. But anyway, he meets Mahaprabhu, and then he wants to go with Mahaprabhu. His heart is there with Mahaprabhu. And you know what he says? You go back, don't act crazy. I don't want you to come with me now. You go back to your home and act as a wife who has a paramour. How would she perform the duty to the husband? If the wife, paramour means she has an external relationship apart from marriage with another man. That's what it means. She's super careful in the house so that the husband doesn't actually have any doubts about her behavior outside. He's directly asking Raghunath Goswami to be duplicitous in this instance. But in all these instances, you see that they were not doing it for themselves. This is the point. The duplicity is not so that they can gain something out of it. The duplicity is so that they can serve Krishna. This was a direct instruction from Krishna. And the Goswamis were Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik so that the Hindus will not be killed. This was the bargain that they had made with the Nawab Hussain Shah, is that if you are not, because they were really intelligent people and he wanted them in the government, and he said, if you are not going to be part of my government, I'm going to kill everybody. So in order to protect everybody, they were acting as Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik. But it was not for their own personal gain. Thank you for those examples. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for giving class on a very short notice. Krishna Prabhu wasn't feeling well, so thank you. And on this point, I really appreciate that Prabhupada also qualified that Vasudeva was a pure devotee. So for those of us wanting to act on duplicitously, okay, first we have to qualify ourselves as being pure devotees, then we can say, okay, maybe we can be duplicitous.
Yes.
So that was also a good point that came out. My question was, you mentioned that Vasudeva was Anakadundubi. His name is Anakadundubi because the proclamation at his birth that he would have a son, God would be his son.
Yeah.
But we do know that Vasudeva has many wives. So the fact that Devaki would be the mother of Krishna, is this the first time? Is this proclamation the first time she found out that she would be the mother of Krishna? As versus
not at this time there was no proclamation. So he is mentioned as Anakadundubi not because there was a proclamation.
No, the proclamation
when Kamsa. Yeah. Exactly.
So
that's when they knew. That's what the purport says.
He would be the wife.
Exactly.
That would bear the.
So he knew Krishna was going to be his son, but he didn't know when or whom it would happen to. But when the proclamation from to Kamsa happened, that time they were sure. Oh, this is what's going to happen. Yes, that's what the purport says. I think. Yeah. It says Devaki was very happy at that time, and I was like, why is he happy when her favorite brother is going to be killed? It's actually not a great circumstance to be happy. But the acharyas say they were happy because of this reason, not because Kamsa is going to be killed. Yes.
Prabhu, I just wanted to give a example in Bhagavatam of somewhat duplicity. And because I was thinking, like you said, that used for the welfare of another, then duplicity can be useful.
Yeah.
And we see that in the 6th canto, Kashyapa Muni has a difficult situation where Diti wants to kill Indra.
Yes.
She's envious of Indra. And so she approaches, and Kashyapa Muni says, I'll give you any benediction you like.
Yes.
And she says, okay, give me the benediction that I can have a son who will kill Indra. And so Kashyapa Muni comes up with this brilliant solution. He says, okay, you do this process for 1 year perfectly. And bhakti is involved in the process.
Payovrata.
And if you do this vrata perfectly for 1 year, you'll get a son who can kill Indra.
Yes.
But if she does this vrat perfectly, she'll do a lot of bhakti.
She'll be purified.
It'll purify her heart, and she won't want to kill Indra.
Yes.
But if you fail at all,
Yeah.
then you will get a son who will be favorable to Indra.
Yes.
So Kashyapa Muni brilliantly, somewhat duplicitously,
Yes.
tricks Diti to become more devoted
Yes.
and less envious of Indra.
Yes. Yeah, this is a really nice example. But the general point I want to make is we should not be duplicitous. Because truthfulness is the last leg of dharma that we still have. In the Kali Yuga, there are 4 legs of dharma, right? What are the 4 legs of dharma? Cleanliness, austerity, mercy, truthfulness. And we are standing on the last leg and we should not break that leg. So we should be truthful always. But if circumstances come, yes.
a similarity between what happens with Kamsa and Vasudeva and Devaki here and Indra, Diti, and Kashyapa is that a person who shouldn't be killed, an innocent, I guess it's different.
Yes.
But still, Kashyapa Muni is thinking, I want to save this respectable personality who is, Diti is being malicious towards him unnecessarily.
Yes.
So we're generally not in situations where someone is trying to kill an innocent person. In that situation, we may need to act a little in a tricky way.
True. And we've actually had, as a society, repercussions of us doing this. In the mid-70s, as book distributors, we would harass people in the airports. We were banned from airports. We still are banned from airports, I think. Like, we cannot go and distribute books in the airports. And then we had a horrible name as Hare Krishna to say, oh, they just pressurize people, say all kinds of things to somehow sell a book. Now Vaisheshika Prabhu says, the first principle is not to sell a book. The first principle is to make sure the person feels good about meeting us and interacting us, right? So that at least if they don't get a book from us, next time they see a devotee, they get a book from the other person at least. So we are being honest and truthful, and we're trying to do good for others, not trying to somehow push a book in. That's not the purpose. So it's had horrible repercussions because of us trying to do things in a duplicitous manner. And now when we do it in the right way, it's still growing now again, which is a nice thing. Yes, somebody else? Prem Chandra Prabhu? And then I'll come back to you, Prabhu. He's been waiting for a while.
Thank you, Prabhu. So what I understood that to be duplicitous, that the trait can be used in the material situation for the spiritual purpose.
Yes.
Which is connected to serve Krishna, otherwise it should not be used.
Yeah.
So, but then it also leads to the fact that do I use that or reach to a point in my maturity that at some point of time I'm using it not surrendering to Krishna. And I was just comparing the example in my mind that Draupadi's situation in Mahabharata, when you gave Mahabharata example where she finally surrendered to Krishna when the Chirharan was going on. And in this case, in this Kansa story, that surrender is not shown, but more than that, he used duplicity to really come out of the situation. So it was a little bit confusing to me in my mind that, is surrendering, when we see the story of Draupadi, we say, okay, one must surrender to Krishna, call Krishna out loud that, okay, there is no one other than you and it should be 100%. Whereas here it feels like it is not 100%. I am still making an endeavor to fix the situation.
Actually, Draupadi also made the endeavor before surrendering. She didn't just leave.
Yeah.
Okay, he's dragging me by and trying to she was trying to hold on to her sari. She was asking for help in the assembly, saying, oh, you're so many elders are there, you're letting this happen. She was not as if docile, like Prabhupada is saying here, right? Prabhupada is saying we have to act. It's not just because Krishna is there, we just don't do anything. We have to act. But ultimately, it depends on Krishna. That is surrender. Right? I've tried everything in my capacity to do it, but whether it works or not is dependent on Krishna. Surrender doesn't mean we are taking that as an opportunity to not do anything.
So should the mood be that I get to the position of surrender literally at step one, that I am fully surrendered to Krishna, I don't know what to do, I cannot come out of this, it's up to you. But then, because I am in a material situation, I use those activities, traits, duplicity, etc. Said, okay, as a service to you, I'm still doing it because I'm supposed to do something.
Yeah.
But really, it is up to you.
I think so. This is, I remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj asking this question to Prabhupada. How do we know the difference between a principle and a detail? And Prabhupada's answer was that requires intelligence for us to really figure out what to use in a certain situation. So when we are really trying to mature in our practice of devotional service, we don't take the decision ourselves. Right? We refer to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. This is why I mentioned those three things. Is that instead of us trying to figure out what to do, we go and take the advice of people we trust. We see what the Shastra says, we see what the sadhus are doing in the time that we live in or in the past, and then decide from that position on what we should use and what we should not use in a particular circumstance, because it's very complicated.
Yeah.
You see, it's not like a one-size-fit-all thing. Every circumstance is different. So we definitely need guidance in how to use it. But it in no way says we're not surrendered. We have to do it. This example comes to mind when Prabhupada was on a morning walk with so many of his disciples. There was a really wild dog. It was barking and all of that. And everybody were afraid. Few people went behind the car. And I heard 2 people went behind Brahmananda Maharaj at that time. But Prabhupada had a cane and said, "Hut!" And then the dog went away. And then they were continuing their walk. And there was another instance of a dog running. And then one of the disciples went and said, "Hut!" The dog started barking even more. Prabhupada said, you have to know the signs before you do it. So we can take this one instance and say, oh, I'm going to apply it. But then we have to know the signs, like Prabhupada is saying, how to use it. And another, I'll finish off with this. I'm saying this to make us understand how it's a very difficult thing for us to do. And this is another favorite story of mine from Prabhupada. Said it many times, I'll say it again. This is the story of a veterinarian. You know this? Veterinarian and his apprentice. So there was an apprentice to a veterinarian. He was a famous veterinarian. And then he was called to treat the throat of a horse. And this throat was swollen, so big. And then he went and touched and felt it. And then he asked for a hammer. And then he whacked the throat of the horse with a hammer and says, in a few days it should be okay. And now the apprentice thought, oh, this is all it needs to be. I need to do to be a veterinary doctor. All I need to do is ask for a hammer and whack the throat of the animal, and the animal will be fine in 3 days. So he said, I've learned everything. I don't want to be an apprentice anymore. I'm going to start my own practice. But the thing is, the villagers didn't know this, and they thought, oh, he's been with this famous doctor. Let me call him if that doctor is not available. And every time he goes, he asks for a hammer and whacks the throat of the animal. And then the animal is in great pain, dies. The villagers are really upset, and they come to this veterinary doctor and say, what is your student doing? He's killing our animals. He's putting the animals in great difficulty and pain. So he goes to him and says, oh, you did the same thing, and when I do it, it's a problem? He says, when did I do it? You did it to that horse with a swollen throat, and it became okay. And then he said, oh, that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. What the horse had done was swallowed a melon fully. It was stuck in the throat. So he had to break the melon so that it would actually digest the melon, and then it would go. But then this guy thought, oh, this is the only thing I have to do. Right? So we can read something. This is why we need to take things holistically. If we read just this section of Prabhupada and say that, oh, we can be duplicitous in material situations, then it's a huge problem. If you look at like the 99% of what Prabhupada is saying, and even here he says in extreme situations in his purport, he's qualifying it with so many adjectives. In general, the general rule is you be honest, you be sincere in what you're trying to do. You don't be duplicitous. You're not thinking, oh, how can I use this quality of duplicity at this point? No, it's a last resort for us when we cannot do anything. And if it is appropriate at that point. If it is not appropriate at that point, we just throw our hands up and say, Krishna, you please help me. Yeah? So it's a very tricky thing. We should stop here. We are way over time. Oh, sorry. Last one. 4 more minutes. Okay. 4 more minutes. It's about 8:40.
If we're internally feeling some kind of disturbance, if the mind is all over the place and the mind is critical, the mind is disturbed, whatever it may be, but externally we're trying to...
Can you move a little?
We're trying to... continue nicely with our service and even trying to counteract the internal nature of things. Would that be considered duplicity?
No. Duplicity is specifically when we are trying to cheat others.
So it has a negative connotation.
Yeah, it is a negative connotation.
Okay.
Duplicitous means I'm saying something and doing something else with respect to another person. This is expected out of us. Right? When I'm angry, I'm expected to calm down. I'm not expected to project that outside and yell at people or harm people. Right? But what duplicitous means here in this context of what we're reading is, he was not really praising Kamsa. He was not really happy with Kamsa In fact, he was cruel and sinful and all of these. Internally, he was feeling so anxious. And yet, externally, he's praising him. And he's smiling at him. This is what Vasudeva is doing, right? To another person, it looks like, oh, this person is actually happy with me. But whereas he's not really happy with me. That's what it means. And the other way to think about it is, even if we have all these things in our heart, there's a nice way to go about doing saying all this to another person, if it involves another person. If you're upset with another person, if you're angry with another person, instead of going and shaking them up or yelling at them, you can sit down with them at an appropriate time and say, Prabhu, what you did really didn't sit well with me. Can you tell me why it happened so that I can understand it better? So that makes it a positive way to reconcile it rather than projecting whatever is inside in the raw version outside. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, we'll stop here. Okay, Mr. Bhagavan Prabhu. Last thing. Yeah, Mataji told me we have a hard stop at 8:40 and not 8:45. So our Bhagavatam classes. But okay, I'll let the organizers decide on that. Tulsi Saki Mataji, what should we do? Yes, Mr. Bhagavan Prabhu, last question. She's allowed us to do it. Can you use the mic, please?
Why was the lady with the paramour not satisfied with her husband? Why does she have to have a paramour?
Oh, no. Mahaprabhu didn't say have a paramour. That's not what he said. He was just giving an example because Raghunath Das Goswami's heart was with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But his house was not very conducive to that thought process. They didn't want him to go because he was the heir of a very rich family and they wanted him to be there and manage the affairs there. He said, now is not the time for you to come with me. For now, don't disturb the situation at home. You can internally think of me and externally act in ways that's pleasing to them. That's what he meant. Mahaprabhu didn't say have a paramour. Oh. I don't know. This is not a real situation, Prabhu, where the lady is having a paramour and she has a background to why she has a paramour. This is just an example that Mahaprabhu is giving in a specific situation. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa sindhubhye vacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.